Hello everybody, it's me, Chris. Hi, hello. You're listening to a special episode of the Crate and Crowbar Special, because it is, in fact, also an episode of Video Games Hot Dog, a different video game podcast, if you can imagine such a thing, produced by our friends Zack and Kevin from Asymmetric, who made Kingdom of Loathing, West of Loathing, several kinds of loathing, indeed. Tom Francis was over at Fantastic Arcade in Austin last week, where he met up with them, and as he did last year, recorded a podcast discussing games like Spelunky 2, Noita, and so on. And as we did last year, we're going to basically treat this as episode of the Crate and Crowbar once again. So no regular episode this week, but it's actually arrived at a pretty good time because we're all either very busy, in the case of Pip and Tom Sr., or simply on holiday, in the case of Alex, or very, 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 very sleepy, in my own case. So I hope you enjoy the following hour of discussion of loads of different indie games from Fantastic Arcade. The rest of us will be back next week. Have a good time. I'll see you for the outro, which won't feel forced at all. Goodbye.
I'm Zack.
Oh my god.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Tom.
And it's time for episode number 348 of Video Games Hot Dog, Fantastic Arcade Supplemental, or episode
260.
Of the Crate and Crowbar.
depending on what we decide to do with this recording.
Yes.
But yeah, we're at Fantastic Arcade, which is, as always, living up to its name and is a delight.
Yeah. This is the festival that is in a cinema, and at the cinema where you can get food and booze in your seat, and the seats are enormous, at least by my British standards, and extremely comfortable. And that goes really well with the nature of the festival as well, which is kind of quite an eclectic mix of stuff that you don't really know what you're going to get. It's, you know, it's a games festival where I can go and I haven't heard of 8 out of the 10 games that I see that day. And that's great to just be in extreme comfort and be shown interesting, cool things you haven't seen before.
The participants are sort of encouraged not to prepare their talks, or at least allowed not to prepare, which is akin to encouragement for,
yeah,
for the kind of people who are going to bring. It's a lot of like things that I think of as like student games. There's a bunch of like the developers skew younger by far than
sure.
at other events.
And there's a ton of folks from the NYU Game Center who are here.
And it's put on by Juegos
Rancheros.
Rancheros, which is, as far as I know, Wiley Wiggins and some other people. I know Rusty Moyer is on the board now. Mm-hmm. Having replaced maybe somebody got kicked off the board for some problematic behavior, and then Rusty came in.
Is Adam Saltzman still?
Adam Saltzman's still involved. Okay. Rachel, I think, Weiss, maybe?
I think that's an actress.
But isn't her name similar to that? It's something like that.
Could be.
I don't know. There's a woman named Autumn who's involved, a guy named Sam who's involved. That's the like Juegos Rancheros group that introduced themselves by their first names. So.
Okay. I know Sam was going around taking pictures, posting them to Twitter.
Yep.
And they set up, computers, so thanks to NVIDIA for sponsoring this event. Yeah. There's the downstairs bar of the Alamo Drafthouse Mueller in Austin, Texas is set up with a bunch of sick rigs, on which you can run a several-year-old hastily constructed launcher.
Yes.
That, JW last name.
Willen?
That's the W. What's the last name? Last name is N.
I don't know. Why did you get us into this mess? Why did you
well, you know him.
Everyone knows him as JW.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, JW from Vlambeer.
Weil. Not Weiss. So I was off by a couple letters, but.
Okay. Rachel, while Sam had.
Autumn Taylor.
Maybe JW.
Sam Palavin.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, JW from Vlambeer wrote this launcher apparently to replace a worse launcher.
This year is actually not, I think it is not a Game Maker launcher. I think they have retired the Game Maker launcher.
Really?
It is a new non-Game Maker launcher that is also not working super well sometimes.
Well, it's challenging to get a bunch of like mostly unreleased and non-completed games into a framework like this. And it works very, very well for what they had to work with. Anyway, you can play all these games.
Heat Signature involves a GameMaker launcher. The game itself is in GameMaker, but you can't use the modern versions of GameMaker to launch anything else, because they don't want you to like launch a virus or something, so it's like much more secure these days. So Heat Signature contains a GameMaker 7 program within it that is just, all it does is launch a folder on your computer, because I want to show you all the like videos and prototype stuff that if you get the special edition. And just to make a folder open from Steam was the only way I could find to do it, was reinstall GameMaker 7 and make a whole game that just opens a folder.
So you can make a game that launches in GameMaker by itself, but you can't from inside that launch something else? Is that the idea?
You can't, in GameMaker Studio, the modern ones, you can't make a game that launches another executable or opens a folder on your hard drive or does anything outside of the game that's running itself. Whereas in the old ones, there was just a line to say, like, run this application, or like, you just feed that folder and it opens it in your default way of looking at a folder.
So if you want to write a Bitcoin mining scam to distribute on Steam, be sure and use GameMaker 7.
Yep.
That's its specialty. So what, do you guys want to talk about the talks that we've seen and particularly enjoyed, or the games we've played and particularly enjoyed, or the people we've hung out with at parties and particularly enjoyed?
If we do the people one, we'll have to get their surnames right, and that could be
Yeah, I've already messed that up a bunch of times, so.
I enjoyed talking to John Brodsky.
Let's talk about games we played first, because that's easier.
Sure.
It is. Something that was very surprising and very delighting to me to find on those machines was the demo of Spelunky 2, which turned out to be an extremely comprehensive demo.
Is it just the whole game so far?
I can't tell. No one has made it past
World 2?
I got to the exit of the last world of the jungle, but was killed before I remembered what button to push. The keyboard controls are slightly different. I got there once. It's, but yeah, there's at least the first world, and then unlike Spelunky 1, after the mines, you now can either go to the jungle or to the volcano, and those are both in there all the way through, seemingly full featured.
Did you notice any bugs? Were there any first world problems?
There were a lot more first world problems than there had previously been. Some very annoying moles.
Oh, right. Those seem obnoxious.
Tunnel around unpredictably and move very quickly. What do you call those? I think it starts with an A. It's like a spiny looking lizard thing.
Yeah. There's a thorned devil or something, or thorny devil, I think.
A horned toad.
Casual.
Also, yeah.
Like English name for it.
They roll up into a ball and then
Anyway, so that's a new enemy. It was weird, like, sort of trying to think of the things that aren't in it from the original Spelunky. Like, occasionally you'll see a scorpion, but it is only ever in a pot. Like, they never just spawn in the world.
Yeah, and same for the spitting snakes.
Yeah, the spitting snakes never spawn. There are equivalents to the tiki traps in the mines now, so that's just harder.
What are the things that, like, there's like a trap that just like, it's like
that's basically the same as the tiki trap, except it does less damage.
Oh, okay.
It imparts the same amount of momentum.
Yeah, there's, I had a new Spelunky moment with those things, because I was in a sticky situation where I needed to climb over one, but the space I had to do so was just really awkward, and I didn't like my chance of being able to do it, so I thought, fuck it, this is worth a bomb. I'll climb off onto this ledge right next to this new tiki trap, and crouch and put a bomb there, and then drop back down and let it blow up. And me climbing up there caused the tiki trap obviously to like start punching, which I knew it would. Then I put the bomb down, then I went down again, and it punched the bomb off the ledge into me and put me up, which I could have predicted.
Yeah, they didn't used to be able to. The tiki traps in Spelunky 1, I think, don't move inanimate objects. And
I think
they do.
Yeah, so like it's instead of spikes, it's like a boxing glove, and that means it pushes things as well as.
There's a new kind of block, which is a sort of a cube of bones that you can destroy with a whip. You can destroy by tossing objects onto it, but weirdly, like, things landing on it don't break it. Like, you can push a heavy block onto it and it doesn't break. If you land on it, even with velocity, it won't break. Those very often spawn skulls when you whip them, and so they are a very cheap source of tossable items.
They can also spawn with spikes on top, like spiky.
Yeah, spikes can be on top of them, and then you can destroy the spikes by do it. Yeah, so that's nice.
Kind of interesting.
There seem to be a lot more room templates. Or maybe I'm just imagining that there are more because they are all new.
Yeah.
But I do think that the introduction of those destructible blocks created a bunch more opportunities for like traversable rooms. Because there are a lot of things where it's like, oh, I fucked up my ability to make this jump by whipping that block that I could have just jumped over instead of destroying it.
It's quite a weird feel for a sequel because it's, feels to me as if they have included kind of a bizarro version of Spelunky 1. So like all of the old, I think it's going to be, we've already seen there's a mines equivalent and there's a jungle equivalent, and I assume there's going to be sort of equivalents of the other two worlds later on. And all of them are just a little bit different. They're also a bit desaturated. Like it's a slight hue shift from the original equivalent and a bit less saturation. And then all these, slight tweaks on enemies and, slightly new things. But then, like, as you say, at the end of the mines, there are two different ways you can go. One of them is the equivalent to the jungle, and the other one is the volcano, which is just totally new. And I think there's just an alternative world for each of the previous ones. So it's almost like, do you want just an improved version of Spelunky, or do you want a whole new Spelunky, and you can just choose at each stage which thing you want?
Well, they also have within the worlds, there are subspaces that you can go into, and they sometimes have multiple exits, which then connect the worlds in different strange ways.
Yeah, there's like a backside to every level, which is sort of always dark. Apparently that's how the black market works.
It's the dark side of the moon.
It is the dark side of the moon.
Wait, are you on the moon in Spelunky 2?
Yeah.
And it just happens to look a lot like...
And have the exact same, it has the exact same gravity, but you're much heavier. So
okay.
The moon is not so different. That's what this game is all about. It's making us understand.
There's a few new items. But yeah, I was talking to Martin last name, who,
Johansson?
Okay, that sounds right.
I don't know what you're talking about, so.
The Swedish guy who made rimmed capsule and.
That was just my insurance policy.
Hold on. Yeah. And Petri, who, is the guy who made.
Crayon Physics.
Yes, I learned that he made Crayon Physics and was very excited.
Which makes a ton of sense.
It does make a ton of sense. And I was able to tell him finally my the fun way that I played Crayon Physics. You were allowed to check a box that said whether you thought your solution was awesome when you had finished every level there. And when I played through it once, and then I was playing through it again, but I only allowed myself to consider a level completed if I finished it using only one shape. And then I only allowed myself to mark it awesome if that shape was a dick. And so I got to tell him that. And he said, oh yeah, we played a bunch of Kingdom of Loathing while we were making that game. Oh, yay. Anyway, they said they just described the black market to me. We were at recess at Fantastic Arcade and on the playground.
It's been the best. That is one of the like joys of this, is it feels, because you're playing all these games that haven't come out and won't be out for a while, and everyone is experiencing them for the first or maybe second time. Everyone is just swapping stories and tips and tricks, and it's just so exciting to do that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just standing over someone's shoulder and saying, oh, have you seen that you can do this? And
yeah. It's so good.
The black market was just on the backside of a jungle level.
Ah, okay.
Which means the black market will always be dark.
Oh shit.
There was no Ankh.
Oh, I see. So,
whoa.
Yeah, so that's the other weird thing about like how equivalent it is to Spelunky in some ways, which is that like the old secrets all seem to be sort of there. Like initially, at least, there's a key in a chest in the mines, and just exactly how you get it is slightly different. And then what it's for, it almost feels like the secrets get more and more different the deeper you go, because early on it's fairly similar, and then I don't know how much we want to talk about what we've discovered so far.
Right.
But the further you go, the more different it gets from how it used to work.
Yeah, you can there's still like a key in a chest that gives you the Ood Jedi in the mines, and then that does one thing in the jungle, which is basically what it does in Spelunky 1. But then there's an entirely different thing that it does in the Volcano, which is crazy and great.
Yeah.
There's a boss at the end of the mines, and it's really, I think that this is an extremely clever piece of design. There are two exits from the last level of the mines, one on the left side and one on the right side. The boss, if you get down close to him, he has an attack that destroys a bunch of blocks. Like basically he turns into a wrecking ball. And so like, if you've got the spike shoes, you can kill him very easily without ever triggering that behavior, but then you have to use a bunch of bombs to get to the exit. So if you engage him on a more dangerous like using more dangerous tactics, you get him to destroy the walls for you, and like then you don't have to spend any resources to continue. Which is very clever.
I think it's kind of similar to the dilemma with Olmec. Like at the end of Spelunky 1, there's a boss that can stomp on you, and if you let it do that but dodge out of the way, it destroys some of the blocks, and eventually you can get it to fall in the lava, and also the entrance to hell is down there somewhere. And if you don't, like, baiting him is horrible, and using a shitload of bombs is much preferable, at least for me. But this, because it's only on like the 4th level of the game, you're not going to have that many bombs, and so it's like, if you do have the bombs, it's a choice. But I imagine there's going to be times when you just get there and you just don't have the bombs to do it, so you're going to have to get him to attack you. I don't know what that's going to be like. If you accidentally kill him and you're out of bombs, you just kind of, well, the game's over now, I guess.
I think he might drop a bag of 3 bombs. Or there might always be a crate with 3 bombs in it. Oh man, something else that happened to me today, which might have been a bug. But I was in one of the dark backsides of the levels, and I whipped a crate, and inside was a bag of bombs and a loose bomb, like sometimes comes out of chests. Like you were saying, like, it would be such a dick move if sometimes crates contained enemies in this one.
So maybe could there have just been a chest behind it or something? I suppose you'd see gems or something, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. It might have been because it was dark. It was like, you know, because in those levels it's dark and they don't give you a torch. So it's sort of like, They seem to be fairly generous with how few enemies spawn in those little, like every once in a while you'll go into like one of those back rooms and, shit, a bat.
Yeah.
Like, but it's never.
We played co-op a bit, and the way that the dead player can participate is better now in that you can charge up a freeze thing. Like you could always like give a little puff of air to knock things off ledges and stuff, but now if you charge that up, it becomes a single shot freeze ray. But we also discovered that while that's charging, you glow blue, and in a dark level or the dark side of a level, you can use that to like light the way for the other player. Just charge it up and don't use it, but just move around to kind of guide them.
And also the fact that it's a freeze ray is just an instant kill. Like you can, if one player is a ghost, they can freeze the shopkeeper and then he just dies from a stomp.
Yeah.
Some of the shopkeepers are slave owners, which I think is a way of Derek making us feel better about murdering them.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like there'll just be like a ladder behind their shop going up to like a locked door. And at first we thought it was like some, grand secret, and we'd have to, find some special key for it. But no, you just kill the shopkeeper. He has a key and you go in there, and that's kind of difficult to do. So we're expecting like a huge reward, and it's a fucking helper.
Which you never ever want.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we've given them a chance in Spelunky 2, but from Spelunky 1, they're seen as a liability.
I wonder, that would be kind of
I was
neat.
doing that and, thinking, well, this is pointless and dumb. And Rusty was, watching me play, and he's like, well, it's, you're freeing them to free them. Like, it's a slave. That's why you do it. It's just a good thing to do.
What you can do is you can open the door and then just not go inside. So that, when he wakes up, he'll understand that he's free from this tyranny. He can have these climbing gloves because I don't want them. And then he can get out and just be naked on the moon. There you go, buddy.
Well, it's like the damsels you rescue in both games, you just kind of leave them in the interstitial bit between levels. Like, you wait here, something will happen.
Yeah, I mean, nothing bad ever happens to you there. So
just only ever kissing and licking.
Yeah. One difference in co-op is that when you rescue and the damsels are all dogs and cats in this.
Yeah.
I thought I saw a human damsel. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, there are some hired hands. Also, there's an area that was full of coffins, and each of the coffins had a hired hand in it.
Whoa.
So, okay.
I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah.
What's the moral status of rescuing them?
And if you're in co-op and one of you takes a damsel through, you both get the health back, which is not the case in Spelunky 1.
Yeah.
Only the person who dragged it through. So there's always shit, which one of us is going to carry this through?
It's really nice. That's a case where I can see the game design reason for making it only one of you, so that there's more decision making and more talking and more, potential for, it to be asymmetrical and for there to create tension and stuff. But actually I just much prefer if we both get it, because it is co-op. We don't really want it to be the competitive aspect of it to be interesting or, I hate having to decide in any cooperative game, like, do I get this or do you get this?
It didn't feel, I almost wish that you had a shared pool of bombs and ropes also. But, I mean, then that removes the drama of having to recover the bombs from someone who you've just killed when you killed your co-op partner.
It could just be like half your bombs always drop when they die or something. So it's still worth doing that. Because it would be kind of nice, like, you could still have interesting discussions, I think, of like, shall we use a bomb for this? You know, it's a shared resource.
Yeah.
I need to check with you that this is alright with you.
The damsel only applying to one character didn't really feel like a gameplay choice to me. It felt like, shit, we forgot. Like, we added co-op to this later. In the same way that, like, now both players can buy stuff in stores, which is very, very nice. As opposed to in Spelunky 1, if you're playing co-op, only the player who's got the camera following them can buy stuff from a store, and everything you buy gets gift wrapped and becomes a package.
Which you then have to whip open, and sometimes you whip your friend, and sometimes you accidentally pick it up. And
is the camera always following one of the players?
Yeah.
Until
they
is that true
die.
in both? In both that game and this game?
In this game, you can play co-op online. It's playing on the same computer. It works the same in Spelunky 2, but there's online co-op, which the camera will just follow each player.
Yeah, that's gonna be good, actually.
You don't die from being off screen in this either, which is nice.
Okay. Yeah, I think one thing that would be great if they did change was the logic of the helpers or whatever, because nobody liked them in the original game, so that seems like an obvious place to try to...
Well, they may have completely revolutionized it and made them incredibly good, but we're not going to find out because no one
will ever use them.
Everyone else just seemed to be playing Noida the entire time.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was going to be playable here until I just saw it in the menu, and this is the game I've been looking forward to for a while. By the aforementioned Petri, who worked on Crayon Physics, and collaborators. I don't have their names to hand in my head. But it's the one where like every pixel is simulated, which basically means it's like that, what was the sand game?
Hell of Sand.
Yeah. Like a sort of web toy where everything's, you're just pouring sand and fire and water and things and just seeing how they react. And it's that, but as a kind of roguelike platformer, where you are a spellcaster and all of your equipment that you find is pretty much wands, and the wands are, I don't know how randomly generated they are, but they are a weird mix of effects and slots and stats. It's actually quite overwhelming at the moment in terms of like, this one they're like 9 stats to do with how fast they generate mana, what their mana cap is, how fast their fire rate is, how fast their charge rate is. And they're also all just called wand, which I imagine is going to change. But those can have effects that would, mess with the world. And, the most basic one is setting fire to stuff. And there's a load of wood in the world. There's a load of, oil. There's coal. And all that stuff burns differently. There's just vats of whiskey. It's kind of a utopia.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Infinite whiskey, but there are a lot of spiders hurling fireballs at you and pools of poison just dripping on you from above.
It's horrible. It must be in hell. It's extremely satisfying, and God, setting fire to stuff in this is amazing. Like, it looked good in trailers, and then doing it for real is even better, because you just almost look at the whole level as like almost a heat map of where the most flammable stuff is and how it's all connected to each other. And if I set fire to that oil, is it going to set off that explosive barrel? And is that going to catch light to the coal? And then, a stack of gunpowder as well.
The gunpowder potion that you pick up.
Yes. Did you do anything with one of those?
I've thrown a gunpowder potion, and it was very satisfying. I've never consumed one. I don't know what happens
itself?
there.
Like just
no, it just creates a bunch of gunpowder.
Yeah.
That you can
gunpowder is surprisingly inert. Like your basic spell attack is like a sort of magic zap type thing. And I was doing that at a big heap of gunpowder, and it didn't go off.
I think that's good to have your basic attack not be something that just causes everything to burst into flames.
Yeah, because you're always going to be hitting stuff that you're not intending to.
Yeah, and then we did find a wand that was just really just a stick that was on fire. Like it didn't cast anything so much as you just held it near stuff and it would set light to it. And that made that kind of an interesting item, because you can't normally just burn things without some kind of ignition source.
But you also don't want to be standing next to things when they explode most of the time.
I think the thing that was useful, it didn't really come out much, but like there are often just big wooden barriers, and just being able to set light to one of those and then walk away would be kind of handy sometimes.
The locomotion of the game is generally just you're moving around. It's sort of like Terraria. in the way that it works, and then you have a jetpack.
Yeah,
but I guess it's some sort of narratively justified wizard jetpack.
Yeah, although like enemies have shotguns and stuff, so I feel like the tech level is kind of ambiguous. But yeah, it's not meant to be a jetpack.
And laser guided rockets and things.
Yeah,
that
came from a tank. Like
really
the cause of
weird.
death was we saw a person die to a laser guided rocket, and it said killed by a tank rocket. We never saw what fired it, but I guess it was a tank.
Or maybe just all the enemies are called tank.
Just ones and tanks all the way down. Yeah, it's really cool. That, for me, that and Spelunky 2 are kind of equally exciting, in terms of like, just figuring out how it works and what the possibilities are. It has they both have the same kind of way of keeping a sense of mystery and a sense of promise, which is quite hard to get anywhere. And so, when you finish a level in Noita, you go to a kind of, shop and then a kind of configuration area. And while you're there, you can, not just equip and unequip wands, but also change what the effects on the wands are. And each one has like a number of slots. And like weirdly, you start with just a sort of basic attack wand and then wand that can fire 3 bombs. It's got limited uses. And in that staging area, if you just unplug the bomb effect from the bomb wand and put the zap effect on it instead, it's like rapid fire, and it's like a Gatling gun of the thing. So it's way better than the original default wand. And so wands like have their own properties for how fast they fire and how much mana they have and all this stuff. And then you decide what effects go in there. And if they have multiple slots, you're setting up a cycle of attacks. So you can have it like the first thing is going to be a bolt, the next one's going to be a bomb, and the next one's going to be like a beam that bounces off stuff. And then there are kind of meta effects where like this one, it's not an effect in itself, but it triggers the next 2 effects at the same time in a spread. And that was the kind of stuff where I was getting excited about, like, ooh, what would happen if you had this thing and then combined it with these 2 things? And we didn't get to see, we got to see some interesting stuff, but it felt like the very, very beginning of that system. It feels like there's more to discover there.
Yeah, that it has such potential. It's exciting to see what it will end up shipping with.
I think I definitely was way more excited to play just a ton of Spelunky 2.
Yeah,
and partly because like it has the same. I think it's worth examining the differences between the 2 games because, like, to me, Noida, it's like, okay, there's clearly a lot more systemic interaction that can happen here, but it's also a lot messier in a way that I find a little less exciting.
The level generation is very, like, messy is a good word because there will be gaps and they'll be like 1 pixel too small for your character to fit through.
It feels like Terraria. That's why I say it feels like Terraria. And I think Terraria feels messy to me also. And it's fine. It's fun. I had a lot of fun playing Terraria, and I'm sure I will enjoy Noida when it's like almost never wish list anything. And Noida's been on my wish list. I was excited to see it playable here. It was, in order to play it with the keyboard on the computers there, you had to like unplug the controller from the back of the computer, launch the game, and then plug the controller back in. It was also surprisingly tricky to get co-op Spelunky working with 1 player on the keyboard and 1 player on the controller. But
Noita is very appealing to me. The level of simulation is even more than I kind of expected. So I accidentally shot up. There's, as well as the ones you find, there are like some plinths have a potion on it, and I accidentally shot one. And the contents of the potion leaked out through the hole I shot in the potion and started filling the area around it. And by the time I got there, it was an empty potion, and the area was just full of slime. I don't really know what slime does, but so I still picked up the empty potion, and then the next time I was near some water, I filled it up with some water so that next time I was on fire, I could throw it on myself to put myself out. So, like that kind of chain of weird happenstance. And even like the enemies, have really sort of systemic properties to them. So like the floating slime things that shoot acid at you, when you shoot them, it punches leaking a hole in them, and that spews acid, and that's real acid that's actually going to like hurt things and lie on the scenery and cause like danger zones and stuff. And there's one enemy that like, the boss of those is like a much bigger one that doesn't shoot anything at you, but just chases you whilst just sort of pouring acid and like spraying it all like in all directions and just like drenching the whole place in it. And that's kind of spectacular.
Those kinds of things just make traversal of the level after you've been able to defeat them so much more challenging because you can't, if you land on the ground, you start taking a bunch of damage from that. And so
it sticks with you as well. And you've got to find like some other liquid to wash it off yourself.
Blood being the most common one.
Yeah, like liquids that don't hurt you are generally useful in this game because most of the other negative effects can be got rid of by doing that. And blood is the most plentiful liquid. Like there's usually some of that around, and it's kind of like a weird image because it does matter how much of it there is, and it doesn't necessarily clean you off instantly. And so you find yourself like wading in a little puddle of blood, trying to like put yourself out if you're on fire, or like wash the acid off you. There was one of my favorite spells that we discovered, or like wand effects that you can put on a wand, which is called Sea of Oil. And every time it was cast, it just felt like the bottom half of the screen was just 100% oil. like sea is not an exaggeration. And oil obviously is extremely flammable. So if there's no flame there, you just created a massive sea of oil and it will flow throughout the whole, level. But if there's any ignition source at all, that goes off and then that flame just kind of rips through the whole like ocean and like incinerates everything. And it's so cool looking.
There was one spell that I was very excited about because it was like, oh, it's like a lightning bolt or something. It's like electric spark. And I purchased it and slotted it into a wand and then tried to test the wand and it just immediately died. I was like, okay. And so then I did it again. And I don't know why I thought there'd be some different effect, but it happened again. And apparently it is not useful until you've gotten some additional thing that you can like launch effects other than the way that they're like slotted in naturally or something.
I think the first time you did it, you'd been like switching between a bunch of wand effects, and we had a theory that like, oh, you'd like got water on yourself or something. Right. And then if you use the Thunderbolt, it kills you. But no, the Thunderbolt just kills you. It was just the Thunderbolt.
I think I found a fire wand that when I used it, all it did was set me on fire.
Yeah, and someone else who was playing said they had one that just created like a small amount of soil, and they just like clicked 3 times and they created 3 mounds of soil on themselves and suffocated to death because they didn't have anything that could like blow through soil.
Yeah, I had one death where I just like accidentally like something burned through on the top and then a bunch of dirt fell down onto me and I suffocated.
It's that kind of chain reaction in the level. It's very kind of reckless with that. Things can have huge effects on each other without your intervention. And in fact, even when you start a level, you're just like, the screen will shake a little bit as stuff is setting each other off down there. I kind of like that. You get some amazing moments where just like this, it won't even be you. You'll go near an enemy and they'll throw like a stick of dynamite at you and you'll shoot it out of the air and it'll bounce back and set fire to some wood above you that then was supporting a huge vat of water, and the water drops down and at first you think nothing's happening, and then like there's a kind of hiss, and then the huge cloud of steam comes up from the bottom of the screen because the water put out a fire way down the level that you hadn't even seen yet, and now like there's steam everywhere. And I think even steam has some kind of properties that can affect you, like everything can interact with everything.
Yeah, super good.
Yeah, I'm very excited to like dig into that properly when it's out. I was worried in advance that it was going to be too hard for me, and it is hard, but it's not oppressively so, I don't think. Like level 1, I feel like is pretty manageable difficulty, and there's loads to discover there. Like even on level 1, you'll find like maybe 2 like random wands that might do things you've never seen before. So like the thing I really care about is like time to interestingly different like toy to play with, or and even like the enemies you get on level 1 are different from run to run, because I remember you having a lot more difficulty than I was with the first level, and then I watched you play and you're just encountering all these like boss enemies I'd never seen before.
It's tailored to each individual person.
I just knew you were so pro at games.
Sure.
The nasty fire bosses.
I played a little bit of Samurai Gunn 2 while I was waiting for a Spelunky computer to open.
Victor was saying that you were very good at it.
I did. Yeah, I guess.
Were you playing against someone?
Yeah, I was playing against Victor, the West of Loathing programmer, and the other Zack Johnson. I think I was just getting lucky. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm okay at it. I haven't played it that much, but I don't know. It feels, for whatever reason, the just moving around in that game feels pretty natural to me, and it's like,
this is the sort of like minimalist competitive platformer thing where you just have a sword and a gun.
You have a sword.
3 bullets still, or
1 bullet?
1 bullet.
Yeah, you only have 1 bullet per life. And the bullet's not actually that useful. Like, it goes pretty slow, and it's like fairly easy to dodge if somebody's paying attention.
Can they bat it back with their sword?
I don't know.
had a feeling you could do that.
It supposedly adds a new move, which is a dash, but it wasn't the other button, and I asked how to do it, and they said I hit jump and sword at the same time, and I tried that, and it didn't seem to do anything, so I don't know. But there's one machine that's just set up with a bunch of multiplayer stuff on it. They were playing a game that I don't remember what it's called. It was Ricochet something, and it was each player was a little circle, and you could charge up a laser to fire in a specific direction from you. But the playfield was full of just these sort of spinning polygons that would deflect the laser.
Huh.
And so, I don't know. It seemed like they were having a good time with it.
Samurai Gunn came out around the same time as Towerfall, and so I went to some parties where both those things were the games that we were playing, and Samurai Gunn was kind of the hardcore one of those two. Like, Towerfall was like, everyone can play, and whoever's, I can't remember what the exact mechanic is, but I think the player who's last gets an extra shield or something, and it's got some kind of like rubber banding like that. And Samurai Gunn is just like, no, fuck you. And like, the best player at Samurai Gunn just dominated every single match we played, whereas in Towerfall, the best player at Towerfall was kind of, had their ups and downs, and everyone kind of got to have their moment of fun. But Samurai Gunn's really good at like, the moment of the kill is super overemphasized and just feels incredibly like brutal. I think that's partly why, it feels like the more hardcore one, because there's just like, it's merciless about this person. Even if you got a lucky kill, I think it presents it as you just fucking own this person.
Yeah, and it always like, it vignettes out everything except the actual kill stroke, and it's like, yeah, it's pretty good. Which I think would almost be necessary. It's visually pretty messy. Like, it just leaves all the corpses around, and there's just a lot of blood splatter and stuff, and so I think it would be kind of difficult to tell what was happening if it didn't do that.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that kind of like focus and, moving everything out the way. But
it's weird if you're not participating in that particular murder on either side. It's like, okay.
That actually ties into one of the talks I saw, which was the Hold Down talk by the aforementioned Martin, probably Johansson. I think it's Johansson. Grapefruct on Twitter. That's how I know him best.
Which is Swedish for grapefruit.
Yes, we learned that. And that is a game, is like the best bit of Breakout, and the whole game of that. So like, the best bit of Breakout, in my opinion, is if you get the ball above the bricks and then it bounces around and just dings and dings and dings, and you're getting loads and loads of bricks without doing anything. And this is a game designed to just around like, sort of, pushing you to try and find those moments. And it creates, instead of a simple rectangle of bricks above you, there's, it's a more random array of bricks below you that you're trying to destroy in order to move further down and keep mining further and further down. And if you don't destroy them, they all have hit points. And if you don't destroy them before they get to the top of the screen, then that's how you lose. And it was a really interesting talk because, the game feels incredibly good. And, Martin just drilled down into exactly how he does, like, how he makes those impacts feel good. Like, for him, that's like, his passion. That's what he wants to spend all his time on, and he spends very little time on the actual like higher level design of the game. One of the things in that was like, there's this blocks that you destroy. They're either like nailed to the back of the level or they're not. And if they're not nailed to the back of the level, then they will fall if there's nothing below them supporting them. So if you can take out one of those nailed in blocks, all the other ones above it will fall. And that's a really satisfying thing to do, because you saved. If that one of those had like 71 hit points or something, then you didn't have to hit it 71 times. He had a sort of technical problem, which was that the physics in it, because you're throwing a shitload of balls around very, very rapidly, and they need to go in as predictable as possible a pattern, because there's just so many of them. If they were all going through natural physics, slight differences would cause them all to ping off in random directions, and it would just be a mess. That means he actually shows their path in advance, like he predicts their path in advance, and then they just follow that until a brick is destroyed, and then it recalculates all that stuff. So
this is like ray casting instead of
so it's
standard
not
physics.
Yeah, it's not checking every frame like where a ball should go. It predicts it in advance where all the balls should go until a brick is destroyed, and then recalculates. But that means you can't really have the blocks can't take some time to sort of fall away or go off screen, because during that time, if anything should have hit them, that's when it would get messy again. And so for that reason, he ended up sort of slowing down the game to show that when the nailed in block disappears and all the ones above it fall, because he needed that to be staggered so you could see this one goes and then that one falls because that one has gone and that one falls because the one below it has gone and that kind of thing. And slowing that down, it couldn't happen over a course of seconds because the balls themselves would then be ricocheting off this stuff as it's all happening. So he just kind of stops the whole game and focuses on it. And that actually makes it like A, really satisfying, and also B, makes it really clear what's happening. You can just understand that mechanic way better. Which is kind of like the samurai gun, focusing on the kill thing.
Yeah, and he talked about how time slows down when collisions happen and stuff, like, and just different, like, ways of faking it feeling more effective than it did. And also that it's not actually doing sort of natural physics on the corners of the balls. It just, it's rounding the angle of reflection for every collision to the nearest 45 degrees, which is... so you can bounce it.
Yeah.
You can, so all the blocks have rounded edges, and if you aim at a curved edge, you can fine tune it so that you can kind of deflect it almost in whatever direction you want. But the thing that I think that gets rounded to 45 degrees is the normal of the curve or something. But
that's it's effectively like they're rectangles with the corners cut off, because you can only have straight up, straight to the right, or 45 degrees up and to the right. Your angle that you come in at is of arbitrary precision. And so therefore so is the actual resulting angle. But like almost anywhere that you when you fire a ball at a particular brick, it is only going to bounce off in one of three directions from where you are.
Yeah. Relative to your angle of incidence. Yeah. Yeah, I remember having to, when I was playing it, I didn't consciously think this physics is fake or anything, but I did notice that my instinct wasn't necessarily lining up with the result, and I just did tests to observe, if you glance off, if you want it to, shoot down and then just go exactly horizontal, you have to hit kind of this bit of the curve.
Right.
It's not necessarily what I intuitively would have aimed for, but once I learned that, it's just a really useful trick, and there's still loads of skill and creativity in figuring out how to use that to create the right kind of self-sustaining bounce pattern within the blocks
and a lot of strategy too, because you don't want to just necessarily destroy everything up top, because then everything moves up quickly. You might want to spend some more time destroying stuff down low, trying to keep a thing near the top available that you can destroy easily when it gets close to the top, if you can.
I should put a link to that if they put up a video on
I think it was all on Twitch
of that Twitch stream, because the talk is he's an entertaining dude.
Yeah,
sometimes talks that are as technical as this one was are sort of dull, but then sometimes people who are good at giving technical talks and not making them dull do them, and they're actually very entertaining and charming.
He also ragged on JW for freeze framing on impacts. That's a common trick to kind of sell the impact, and Martin thinks you shouldn't freeze the whole game. You should just freeze. He just freezes the ball when it bounces. It's technically staying in the same place for a little while before it ricochets off.
And he'll reduce the time to 10% time instead of completely freezing and stuff like that. Yeah.
JW being, of course, Johansson Weiss.
Creator of Nuclear Throne. Yes.
And Minute, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the team on Minute.
We just watched that talk too, which was cute. Yeah,
it was a good mix of sort of just here's where the idea came from, and then a little bit of their process and everything like that. I really do like all the talks that the range from the super detailed thing talking about hold down to the very sort of general, here's my philosophy of what games could be or should be.
And Wiley just sort of doesn't tell people what to talk about what was yours when Heat Signature?
Yeah, last year, Heat Signature was in the selection for the arcade, and I didn't even think about the sort of talk side of it until a few weeks before, and I emailed Wiley and said, by the way, do you want me to be on stage and say something? And he said, yeah, sure, and then that was it. I was
oh wait, I was there, but I'll let you describe to the audience what you did.
I honestly, it doesn't feel like I gave a talk at Fantastic Arcade a year ago. I don't remember doing that. 3 or 4 years ago, yes, I don't remember. But I do remember the conversations before it, because also how long does your talk have to be? I didn't know that. And it's that's also kind of left a bit up to you. And I changed what I was going to talk about from watching talks at Fantastic Arcade, because so many of them were about games that had no challenge to them, intentionally, anti-challenge. and games that are just sort of meant to be experiences. And, I didn't really have a concrete plan for what I was going to talk about, but I would, I can talk a lot about the, mechanics and challenge and random generation and, the finer points of those and the deeper consequences of those. And then I sort of start to feel like, this is not the room for that. And actually, I shifted a little bit. It was still like sort of 50% what I was going to say, but then I talked more about, accessibility, just making the game work better for a wider range of people by, with the pausing and, figuring out how to teach that pausing and get people to use it. And, we learned loads of really interesting things in iterating on that and figuring out how it worked. And I'm glad I did that. Now I think, again, watching the talks has given me an even broader interpretation of what a talk can be. Cause we saw one with, I'm gonna have the surname problem again, but Jenny and collaborator. So anyone remember the surname?
I think it's Jenny Shao and AP Thompson.
Excellent. And they just made a game in 2 hours.
Every year there's somebody who makes a game.
Right.
Yeah, it was Natalie Lawhead
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
And then
last year she made the website for the game while it was the Doodle Pro 95 guy that made the game last year.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Fernando?
Yes, that sounds right.
Fernando Ramillo, I'm going to say. Just jumped in with a surname there.
There you go.
And Martin also, in the hold down talk, just started sort of fucking with some values. Like when he's talking about how he did screen shake, he started to say, let's see what happens if we put in 60 here. And let's see what happens if we turn off the dampening on screen shake so it just lasts forever. And that's your world now.
Yeah.
And that was so cool that I kind of think if I was, if you told me I have to do a talk at Fantastic Arcade in an hour's time, I would just open up my project in Game Maker and just start changing some values and say, what happens if we add a shader that makes everything, inverted colors? And what happens if there's no friction so everyone can't stop running when they start running?
Yeah, when I did mine, he asked me if I would just play West of Loathing for 15 minutes and talk about it. And I said, yeah, sure. And then the day before he asked me if it could be a half an hour instead. And then a few minutes before he asked me if it could be an hour. So I ended up just like, talking about our sort of process and showing the tools that we use. And then in doing that, sort of showing the Kingdom of Loathing tools and how they're very similar, but kind of evolved from that. And it's a weird variety of things because a lot of it is just being made up on the spot. It's very, very good. We also, Grace Bruxner was there showing her game, Grace Bruxner Presents The Haunted Island, a Frog Detective Adventure, which is very good.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Grace Bruxner's whole deal. Before her talk started, she was using the drawing program that she uses to do her art, but she was moving layers around to make a character do sick scooter tricks.
I imagined it was her on the scooter.
It was very much her. It looked like her. It was very much her. Yeah.
And even that had its own like little arc to it because she did a lot that was, making the scooter go over a hill and stuff and then making the scooter go over a volcano and, escalating in that way. And then there's one where we also saw her draw like a road going off into the horizon and it wasn't totally clear what she was going to do with this into the scooter thing. And then she just had the scooter grow instead.
Yeah, she made it very small and then scaled it up so that it looked like it was just running towards the camera. Very
twist ending to the doodling.
I'm very excited to see what that career produces.
Yes.
I didn't really want to watch the gameplay of the Haunted Island though, because I think it's not super long and I didn't want to have I didn't want to have already seen like a quarter of it when I go to play it.
Yeah. I think you may have.
Well, I was looking at my phone the entire time that they were playing and listening. Jerry Bellick was also like doing a terrible job of doing a lot of the voice, deliberately terrible. I'm sure he could do a great Frog Detective voice if he really put his mind to it. There was another, the Cricket Through the Ages talk.
This is a game by Free Lives, who did, Broforce and Genital Jousting. And, just before them, I can't remember what the talk before was, but I'd just been musing to myself, like, what is the perfect game to show here and what is the perfect way to show it? And then lo and behold, the perfect game for like being shown on a cinema screen to a bunch of people in a very like casual context where like comedy is king really, like most of the the stuff that does best is stuff that's funny. And it reminded me of the concept of, I think I learned this from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, the tight 10 in stand-up comedy, that you spend like the first part of your career is just trying to get 10 minutes of good stuff, and it takes months and months of work to get just 10 minutes where every single thing is killer. And cricket through the ages, most of your lives, there are multiple modes to it, but one of them is the story of how cricket was invented, starting in Paleolithic times when T-Rexes were attacking cavemen and the cavemen couldn't do anything to defend themselves until they figured out how to hurl rocks. And the format of the game is just there's a character on the left and there's a character on the right, and it's normally 2-player, although there's a single-player mode. And you just have one button, and if you hold the button, you spin. Well, if you're the caveman in this context, the caveman can spin their arm by holding the button, and when they release, it throws the rock in whatever direction their arm happens to be pointing right then, which is almost impossible to predict. I don't know what the T-Rex, I guess the T-Rex just moves with the button. And then through that format, it just goes through from that all the way to the modern era, all the way to space, all the way to the far future. And if someone pitched this game to me, I would say there's not enough scope in just having two characters throw things at each other to make that really work. But not only is each one incredibly funny, it feels like it's funny in a different way. And the particular, it never really gets to traditional cricket. It's it'll be like a badminton racket and a shuttlecock and, wait, that's a totally sensible game of badminton. A cricket bat and a football, or a cricket bat and a sword. Some of it is, structured obviously to be appropriate to the era, but then there's a load of randomization as well in what they throw at each other. And yeah, it was just amazing to I don't know if it was 10 minutes, but it was a whirlwind tour of history in which just the number of ways that an object hitting someone and then falling over and dying can be funny.
There was a moment in the end where I think it was an astronaut on one side and a caveman on the other side, or it was a knight on the other side with a sword, and the astronaut throws some sort of a grenade that kills the knight, but then the knight falls over in a way that causes the sword to cut off the astronaut at its midsection, and then his legs just outgassed the spacesuit and flew off the screen as it was fading out to grant the point. I was saying to the people that we were watching this with, stuff like that makes me feel this certain kind of career existential dread because the best joke I will ever write will not make anyone laugh as hard as that thing that just happened. And I also feel that way about seeing somebody get kicked in the nuts on Jackass, which is sort of depressing, but
my favorite, that's tightly scripted.
That's true.
So I had to write that joke. One of my favorite moments in it was just once it gets to the point that humanity is involved into crabs and they're throwing rocks at each other. It was being played live by people who'd never played the game before, which makes it doubly impressive that it flowed so well, and everything they ever did was hilariously funny. And also had an arc to it where the first time they play a scenario, they both throw their objects in the opposite direction and not get anywhere, and then they get slightly better. But the crab one, the first time they both, found themselves as crabs in a gladiatorial arena in the far future, they both threw their objects in random directions as they often did. And there's just a beat, and they both just scuttle towards each other at incredible speed, just flailing their claws.
In the competitive version, I guess they're always competitive, but every round ends with whoever lost playing the part of the queen, knighting whoever won.
Which is also done in the same game mechanic where she can spin the sword as if she's pitching a cricket ball, and it can cut off any limb and usually ends up shredding them. And obviously in the future it's a lightsaber that she knights them with. And if you're playing the football mini game, the sword is attached to her foot, so she has to spin her leg.
And there's no way to knight them without knocking all of the pieces of the chandelier off. It's man. I want there to be a single player campaign.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, this is easy to say, but I feel like it would be fairly cheap in terms of effort to make that something that was pretty entertaining. You just did a lot of different objects that you're trying to knock over or whatever.
Yeah. They were saying that it just isn't as much fun. It isn't as funny when you're playing against an AI. If
you're alone in a room, you're not, the laughter is not.
Yeah, no, and that's, I think that's true. But, it's, I don't know that I foresee a future in which I am going to be playing this multiplayer at a party, you know, and if there was a Switch version and you could just pull out your Switch and play it on the same screen, that would be pretty great. Like, cause then you could
do
just
it every day on the train or the bus or
just
whatever.
with strangers. Yeah. Hey, do you want to play this cricket game? No. Well, I bet you do. I don't remember his name, who made the game Faith. That actually came out like last Halloween, and I remember discovering it somehow and playing it and talking about it. But it's a sort of a Commodore 64 graphics looking horror game that is very, very good. He did a talk that was pretty entertaining about making that thing too. He sort of reminded me, like, the way that he talked and the stuff that he talked about, I was like, oh, this guy's just the horror Jay Tholen. Like, just like, seems like the same kind of like gentle, nice guy, but instead of making the weird thing that Jay is making, he's making this like weird, like exorcism game. I was just looking at the schedule because there was some stuff that,
in addition to talks and sort of the standard arcade segment, they also have arcade tournaments, and they'll bring games in that might not have been seen anywhere. There was a game on the first day that I played called Sticky Cats, where
This is also by Free Lives.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. I think the narrative is that you are among you are a cat among a gang of cats that breaks into places and tries to get a fish out of the fishbowl and get it back out the window, and whoever is in possession of the fish at the end of when you get to the window, it wins, but you don't really have a bunch of control over your limbs. And when you are near a surface, your claws stick out and you stick into surfaces, including other cats, and various objects in the scene. And so it's just this sort of hilarious sort of traversal of the space where your limbs are flailing and you're sticking to things randomly and, just trying to find the fish, and the fish will get caught between two pieces of furniture, and then one of the cats, which is smaller, has to like dive down and grab it and try to get out without getting clobbered by another cat. And it's
and the cats are all different sizes, so they have different amounts of inertia.
Yep. Yeah.
They always commission a few arcade cabinet games for every Fantastic Arcade also, and so Tyreek Plummer, who has been working on Catacomb Kids for forever, made a game that's sort of like a weird tower defense game where you're building things on the outside of a planet, but all of the art, it was sort of like desktop tower defense, where all of the art is just like photographs of like thumbtacks that he had and stuff, and it's coins, and I didn't play as much of it as you did, Kevin. But it seems, it's a video game.
It's fun. It's a tiny little planet that you're on, and you can build towers.
It's like a wadded up piece of paper.
Yeah, that's a wadded up. It's Paper Planet Pop, or
that sounds right.
Planet Paper Pop or something. And you can build little towers that help you defend against the waves of attacking objects.
Coins and space squids.
Yeah,
those aren't based on photographs, I don't think.
And the arcade thing has the controls is just like a dial and the button, and the dial is a really nice, like, heavy feeling thing that you can kind of spin, has inertia, and the whole interface is done through that. So like if you place a research center, the way you then use it is to walk into it and then turn the dial, and it becomes a rotary selection of the things you can research, and it's all very like context sensitive, and feels really nice to play with. And that actually, I really liked the were they like space jellyfish or something? The ones with like wavy limbs that were, it was like, they had some kind of core inside them, and it was all very like physicsy, and they would drift through space, and as you shot them open, like you'd rip a hole in them, and they would, kind of float open, and the core would come out, and that was cool.
Yeah.
Physics is good. That's kind of a running theme in a lot of this. Because like the physics, Noita is very physicsy, and that's kind of like used for emergence, really. And it's like dialing that to the max. And then Spelunky, I feel like a lot of my favorite moments in Spelunky kind of come from physics, like that thing punching the bomb into my face. That was a highlight. And it was just because the physics made sense. And I remember you, Zack, had a moment where like did you fire a crossbow or something like off screen, and the arrow just fucking came back from off screen. And for a moment, it was like, what the hell? How did that happen? And then we realized it must have set off a dart trap that was at the exact same level.
Right.
So, it fired an arrow back.
And this dart came back and it's way shittier than the dart that I fired.
The crossbow is really cool, actually. That's a new weapon in Spelunky 2 where, it's only got one arrow, but when you fire it into a wall, it becomes a platform that you can stand on. And then it falls out after and you can also just pick it up again and reload it back into the crossbow. And if you lose that arrow, which you probably will, you can take any dart from a dart trap and fire that with it as well.
Which makes it equivalent to throwing it with the baseball glove, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know, or maybe it does more damage when it comes out of the crossbow. It was enough to kill basically anything in the first couple of levels, at least.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine. It's possible that it won't be as generous, but it's hard to imagine hanging on to that. Sort of any weapon that's not the shotgun in Spelunky is hard to imagine.
I have a real soft spot for like the slightly offbeat weapons. Like I always ended up, I'll take the freeze ray if I can, and I'll take, in the original freeware Spelunky on PC, there was a bow that I really liked. And
there was a pistol also, which was just like...
I can see why I got rid of that. It was a little bit redundant.
It was just like a shittier shotgun. Yeah. A shit gun, as it were.
And yeah, I can't remember what else, but stuff like the knife. I'll go for the knife if I can. And I love, the shield in Spelunky 1 is my favorite weapon, probably. Just like
shield.
Yeah, if you go to the castle, which is another secret level, there's a knight there who's just psychotic and bounces around, and he has a shield that can crush you against any surface. If you kill him, you can take it, and then you can crush anything against any surface. And it's like, even like gold. If you're pushing with the shield, you don't pick it up. It just gets pushed until you hit a wall, and then it gets annihilated by the crusher. And you can any enemy, I think, will get completely crushed by this if you run into them. Like, no one can stop you, and you can just squish anything at the wall. It's not that good a thing to take because obviously you're just destroying everything. You don't get to pick anything up in it. You have to kind of put it down to go over and actually obtain anything. But it's so much fun to use that I like those kind of like niche weapons where it does one thing really, really well. And, it basically because it becomes like a little game mode that I'm playing that's different. I found it in Spelunky 1, when I did hit my limit with it eventually, and it was when I started a run, I didn't really know what to aim for. Like if there was a time when I'd seen that knight, but I'd never defeated it, and trying to get back to the castle and getting that shield was my goal in life. And then when I got it, it was good enough that there's probably like a bunch more runs where that was my goal, just to do that again. And now I've done that enough times, I don't really need to do it again. Same with like the plasma gun, same with getting to hell. Obviously, that's your long-term goal for a lot of your time with Spelunky. And after I did it, I think I've beaten hell maybe twice, and I have no desire to do it again. It's like, it's so much work to do it, that when I've never done it, absolutely, I'll work towards it and I'll keep aiming for it. But once I have, I don't really feel the need to do it. So I'm hoping that the branching in Spelunky 2 will just have more stuff to aim for. Like
I think I could understand people who felt, because I knew a bunch of people who felt like there doesn't need to be a Spelunky 2. Spelunky is sort of the perfect video game in a lot of ways, except that I think that what he has actually done with it is this is like more content for Spelunky. It's the same game, which is still the perfect game. This is just more stuff to do and more places to go in it, which I always want. Like, that's what I always wanted more out of Minecraft. Like Minecraft is a great game. The content in Minecraft was weird and dumb and bad. And just goofy choices and dissatisfying, and I always wanted that's what I wanted out of like Minecraft mods was like, what if, just like put like goblins in there and you get a necklace or something, right? Like it's just like.
Yeah, I never did is it like the Ender Dragon?
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like a very traditional kind of, because people were kind of complaining there was no way to end the game, no kind of goal to aim for, so they just added like the end. And
I mean, I appreciate that it was
motivated to go for that.
I appreciate that it was built up based on like player mythologizing and stuff, but then it was like, oh, well, we've just added this terrible alchemy system and this terrible enchanting system, so let's tie it into that. It's like, those experience points you've been earning, that's the currency for enchanting for some reason. Like, don't. Somebody should make a game like Minecraft, only good.
If only anyone had thought of that.
Yeah. Had some good meals.
Yep.
Had some good beers.
Should we review those?
Colleen's Kitchen. There's been a boil order. It just was lifted. An hour ago, the phone rang here, and either a prankster / poisoner or the utility department has called to let the owners of our Airbnb know that the boil order has been lifted. Did you ever... So when I was growing up, there were boil orders all the time.
I'd never heard of it.
Never heard of it. You?
This is my first.
Huh. I don't know. I guess that was before my grandpa worked at the water department. So it wasn't his fault. And maybe they hired him to whip it into shape. But it was just like, I think a pretty common thing where it's like, crap, something went wrong with the water treatment.
And it sounded like the water's probably been safe for the last 2-3 days or whatever, but doing the testing, they have to not only test it thoroughly, but test every water from every part of the whole system to make sure that all of it is safe, and they've just figured that out.
So they say you don't have to flush the pipes, but if you've been getting water this whole time, some water in the pipe near your house has got to be unsafe, right? Like,
unless none of it was ever unsafe, and they've determined that.
Yeah, I can imagine a situation where there's a risk of contamination, so they have to assume it's contaminated until they finish the test.
Until they can
test
verify
ultimately
that
say it's not.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I was worried because I had just fucked up and drank out of a drinking fountain when we were doing a room escape a couple days ago. I'm still okay, I think, unless this is heaven. Yeah, I do like you guys.
You have been playing a lot of Spelunky.
I've been playing a lot of Spelunky too, yeah.
My God, it all makes sense.
Yeah, and it's weird. The computer next to it has Spelunky 3, and that has Spelunky 4. It's like, wow.
Is that your dream? You just play Spelunky 2 till you need some more, then go on to Spelunky 3.
Yeah, it's pretty
good.
good.
And they bring you beer and burgers while you play.
Yeah, the draft house is a little bit heaven-like.
We did do a room escape here, which Kevin did not like one bit. It was a little sloppy.
It was arguably supposed to be a seance, and that was just not an interesting part of it at all. Like, it didn't need to have that. It was just bad. The very first clue you see, it turns out, isn't actually a useful clue for you at all, because it isn't a thing that's within your power to make any choice or
There's
interaction.
Some secret rooms and stuff, which is cool. That's always a cool thing.
Sure.
Almost all of the electromechanical things malfunctioned and had to be thumped on by an attendant. So that was okay.
There was an attendant there, and the first thing she does is spoil the existence of additional spaces.
That does kind of suck.
And then continued throughout the whole rest of the thing to be giving unwanted hints and nudges without us prompting.
And the thing that we spent by far the most time on was trying to open a shitty, cheap combination lock that we knew the combination to, but just everyone we finally had the woman who worked there open it for us.
And it still took her a minute and a half or something. Yeah. Anyway. So there's some variable quality rooms.
I tried to go to the House of Torment that I'd been hearing so much about, but they wouldn't let me in with my pocket knife because I guess they were afraid I was going to take apart one of the guy's chainsaws and put the blade back on it. Anyway, so that's Austin. Fantastic Arcade. I love this event so much. Every year I think, is this the year that I get over it? But nope, it's not yet.
Is this the year that it jumps the shark?
It's weird. I don't know what it is that makes it so that I think the fact that the venue itself is just sort of made of infrastructure, the people organizing this, as long as they're allowed to do it in the Alamo Draft House, they've got all of the space taken care of. They've got all of the AV taken care of. All of the catering, food and booze is taken care of. There's plentiful bathrooms. There's lots of space for the games to be exhibited.
It's a nice size. It's limited to 200-ish people, I think, which is small, but it's not really a public-facing event. It's not like you're inviting the public to come to it per se. It's mostly for game developers to talk to other game developers.
It's actually it's nicer now, I think, than it was 3 years ago when it was part of Fantastic Fest, which is a big film festival. And I remember back then it being, I think they had 2 theaters for it, and it was still crowded to the point where if you were late to a thing, you weren't going to get a seat.
Yeah.
And now it's much smaller, it feels like, which is actually nicer.
Oh, right, because anyone who had a Fantastic Fest ticket could play the games and things.
Yeah, I don't know how the ticketing worked, but it was definitely just way more people showing up. And
yeah.
Well, anyway, do we have anything else to say about our experiences at Fantastic Arcade, or can we pull the plug on this episode?
Go get some more beer.
Yeah, go get some more beer. Go play some more Spelunky 2. probably done playing Spelunky 2. I went out on a good note. I got all the way to the end of the jungle and was killed standing on the door. So I don't know. I don't know what happens when you go through it, but it's, you know what? It's a mystery. And if it had just been like the end of the demo, I would have been like, oh, okay. But now I don't know. Now it could be anything. Yep. Maybe I could have gotten to the double temple.
It's just temples all the way down.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I've had a fantastic time recording this episode of Video Games Hot Dog with you, and I hope we do it again next year. This seems to be our deal now.
Yeah, we probably will.
Hooray.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great week, everyone.
Haha, thank you, my friends Zack, Kyvan and Tom, who had a wonderful time recording this episode. I wasn't there and have experienced this vicariously in the way that everyone experiences a podcast, like seeing your friends through a pane of glass. Anyway, it's time for the outro. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you would like to find us on the internet, you can find us at crateandcrowbar.com. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/crateandcrowbar. We are on Twitter at crateandcrowbar, and we also have a Patreon, which is to be found at patreon.com/crateandcrowbar. However, Patreon backers should note that they will not be charged for this episode because of the nature of its production and the fact that you've only received 1 hour of hot takes rather than the unspoken mandate of anywhere between 1.5 and 5. Anyway, thanks for listening. Catch you next